You've earned every penny. All right, I promised myself that I will not take all day or 2 days or 3 days or whatever. We went over a lot of the evidence yesterday, but there's more. And as I said, I only have one opportunity to speak with you. I don't know what the prosecution is going to respond with. Hopefully it will just be rebutting what we have said, nothing new that you haven't heard, because I think it's fair to say that during the opening argument by Ms. Silverman, you heard everything that went on in this case. And I'm sure, as I said, it shouldn't have taken 3 days and 9 weeks and 8 years to convict Ms. Sementilli if she was guilty. It took all that time to try and convict her because I submit to you she is not guilty. And I told you some of the reasons. And I was thinking last night, and we'll go over, the evidence like the phone records and all those things a little more again, because it occupied such a significant part of this case. But I was thinking about that letter again that was written by Mr. Baker after he had entered his plea of guilty. These are some of the thoughts I had, and I'll express a few more. No reason to write this letter. If she was a co-conspirator, why lie to her, having a letter delivered by her attorneys which he did not know would get turned over. He's a liar, he's a murderer, but despite all his inconsistencies, he has remained consistent about one thing, that Monica is innocent, and he had nothing to gain by testifying, no reason to lie about this. We could take this down. This is what he said on the witness stand when asked about the letter. It was just a message to her to let her know how I felt. I didn't want to think, I just did it just to be as ruthless. I didn't want her to think I did it just to be as ruthless and heinous as they are trying to make it out to be. Like it was cold. And it was, but I wanted her to know. Now, what did he want her to know? He wanted her to know what was in the letter. As much as I want to apologize to say I'm sorry for what happened to him and anyone else, since it will never be enough for me to emphasize, especially to you, this all happened in 2007, because remember this is written in 2023, 24. It was actually, the intent was to actually deliver a gift for your birthday. Unknowing it was an unforeseen disaster, a disaster to which I felt horrible. It got worse by my own personal hell. It was supposed to have been a good thing, but it went horribly wrong. So why did he write it? He wasn't testifying. He didn't have a deal. He wasn't testifying against anybody because he had an agreement to say they were guilty, even if they weren't. Never did that with Monica. Why did he write that letter? After he pled guilty, mind you. So he pled guilty not to an accident, not to a disaster. He knows what he pled guilty to. He pled guilty to first-degree murder. Premeditated, malice aforethought, knowing he was going to kill somebody, intending to kill somebody, and killing somebody, and following through. That's what he pled to. But remember, when he entered his plea, and you have the transcript, nobody went into what happened with him. Now the prosecution will tell you, and the prosecution is right, If you're willing to go into court and say, I am guilty of all the charges, there's not much anyone can do but say, you are convicted. And without a deal, without a promise ahead of time like Mr. Austin got, there's not much the court can do except to do what it did and sentence you to the maximum, the only sentence for what he pled to, life without parole. And I submit to you, as I submitted yesterday, had he been asked, simply asked, wouldn't have changed the plea, wouldn't have changed the charge, wouldn't have changed the sentence. Tell us, Mr. Baker, what did you do? Was Monica Sementilli your co-conspirator? Did she join you? It's not going to change your plea. You're pleading guilty. Just tell us. That's what you were charged with. Now, you pled guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. Turned out the conspirator was Christopher Austin. But just tell us, did she join you? And then he would have been on the spot. But not really. Because his story that he tried to cover up in that letter, what he testified to on the witness stand, again, with no deal, he didn't have to do anything. We couldn't call him to the stand and force him to testify. What are we going to do to him? Hold him in contempt? He's doing life without parole. We'll give you 3 days of contempt. He didn't have to do any of that. And it became clear to us, thankfully, well, not thankfully, they should have asked him. They should have asked him.
Well, I'm going to object. People have no right to do that.
Excuse me. You can argue. It's overruled.
No right to do that. Okay. Her name was right in the charge. But if you read the transcript, Mr. Baker, you are charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder with the use of a weapon. For some reason, the name conspiracy with Monica Sementilli was left out. It was in the charge, and they will argue that to you. He pled guilty to the charge. Of course he was pleading guilty to conspiring with Monica. That's not what they read to him in court. And I submit to you it was not an accident. Because I submit to you it was made clear to them that had he been asked, are you pleading guilty to conspiracy to commit murder with Monica Sementilli, he would have said, no, she wasn't the one involved. It was somebody else. Now, he probably would not have named Mr. Austin dead, who was protecting him, man of his word. That means anything to a brutal killer. But, submit to you, he would not have said, I plead guilty to that. They let him plead guilty to the charge without mentioning her name or asking him who he conspired with. And remember also something interesting. We're not allowed to, she says. The charge included all these overt acts. Remember? You're going to see all these, they call them overt acts, which are necessary. Just one has to be found true, and as the prosecution said, you don't even have to agree on which one, and there's like 50 of them. They called up, they planned it, they went to the scene, they hid the knife, whatever's in there. Everything in there is what the testimony was that occurred. And if this was Mr. Baker's trial, you'd have to find one of them true, and if you find Ms. Sementilli guilty, which I implore you she is not, based on the facts of this case, then you're going to have to find one of the overt acts was true. But a lot of them are true. She called up. We went to. I drove to the residence. I had a knife, whatever. That's not what this case is about. If Baker is guilty, he's guilty of all those overt acts. If she is proven guilty, she is guilty of all those overt acts. The ones that are true have nothing to do with who killed Fabio. They have to do with the fact that he was killed. But the point is, to be found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, as I recall, and you'll be instructed, you have to meet all the elements, and you have to have committed at least one of the overt acts. So, and one of the overt acts, a lot of them involved Monica Sementilli. Called her up, you planned it, you went there, she told you he was going to be alone, she made sure he was there. There must be 20 of them. Why didn't the prosecution, when they took his plea, include one of the overt acts? That they could have done, that's the charge. They didn't name one of them. They just had him plead no contest, equivalent of guilty, to committing a conspiracy with at least one overt act. And had they said, one of the 20 or whatever's there, you look there, where her name is mentioned, I submit to you he would have said no. Because it became clear after he was sentenced to life without parole, and nobody could do anything to him or for him, and no one could say he made a deal, and no one could say he got a bargain, and no one could say he got 15, and no one could say anything, because he got the maximum, that it became clear that Monica was not with him. And he was willing to testify to that under oath. Now, oath to him, you can say means nothing. It may not. He distinguished between it when he lied to us when we met with him the 12 or 13 times. Yeah, I lied about this, like that, but I wasn't under oath, and he wasn't. We can't put him under oath. So he told you he told the truth on the witness stand, and the prosecution will probably point out many times when they say he lied even under oath. But it was our duty, representing a client who had pleaded not guilty, which means it is a total denial of all of the charges, and we know the person, and we only knew one at the time, Robert Baker, had committed the murder. It was clear. It was clear from the February 14th, 2017, it was clear. And I told you why I thought these gentlemen and those who preceded them should have arrested him right on the spot, get him off the street, find out what happened if you could from him. Find a second murderer. Don't have the family, keep the family in danger. That was the danger, leaving him on the street and leaving Austin on the street. But he made it clear when we met with him, the only thing he made clear that clearly he was consistent with throughout our interviews of him was that she was not involved at all. So what were we supposed to do? Not put him on the stand when we believe that was the truth and that's what the evidence showed? The one person who was there, well, two people could have established that she wasn't there. Mr. Baker did, in his stumbling, mumbling way, but he was consistent about that. He lied about Jaybird, and he certainly lied there in that letter. But he didn't lie about whether she was involved or not. And the other one who could have exonerated her as well, and should have, if he had any real conscience or guts, was Christopher Austin. Because he had said, remember, all along in the Perkins and all the rest, he didn't even know her. He didn't know her name. He didn't know anything about her. And I'll get to what they told him after that about what he had to say. He even said to Miss Stagel, you tell me what you need, and I'll give it to you. but I want something in return, and she couldn't give it then. Nor am I saying, would she? He wanted to go home and see his wife and daughters. He had to wait to get his deal until he came down here with Mr. Aval, and you know all about that. So Mr. Austin, after all, there's only two people who know what happened that day. One of them pled guilty and is doing life and said she had nothing to do with it. One got the deal of the century, was told what to say, and said it. Yeah, I remember there was some calls. One, I don't know, was there one? Was there two? Was there three? Was there... Let me read, and I'll get back to this letter. This is a verbatim transcript from the tape of the proffer that was played to you. Proffer is no more, as you know, than an interview of the person who wants the deal, and now the prosecution is going to find out whether he's earned the deal. And remember how you earn a deal. You tell the truth. Okay, that's good. And the information has to be valuable. Why wasn't the proffer just tell the truth? Why does it have to be valuable? Because he's worthless if he just gets up there and says, I killed Fabio Sementilli and I did it with Robert Baker and she had nothing to do with it. Not only is that not valuable, because they already had Baker, right, doing life. They already had him confessing in Vancouver to the conspiracy to commit murder. They could have sentenced him to 30 to life. That would have been justice and the end of this case. But it wouldn't have gotten them hurt. And that's what they wanted. And I don't question their sincerity. I question their judgment. And the two before them. And the two before them. And the two before them. What was it, 10, 15? Not one of them said, this is not a bad idea to not go up there and see Austin. We shouldn't leave Baker on the street, There's something wrong here. It's not working. We're trailing her around 24 hours a day with trackers and tailors, and we're learning nothing more than she had an affair. Why aren't we learning that they conspired? Why aren't we hearing her? One of them was sitting in the car almost next to her when she said, how can I be so stupid? How can I be so stupid to be with this guy who's telling me what to do and who to touch and who to kiss and who to have three-ways with, whatever. It's a little late to leave him, isn't it? Tell everyone I had an affair with this guy. This is the guy. And in some sick, perverted way, yes, she loved him. So stupid and love are not mutually exclusive. And you can read a lot of books and see a lot of movies and know a lot of people who do stupid things for love. That is hardly unusual in the world of men and women and the human species, shall we say. People love for all the right reasons and it's beautiful, and they love for all the wrong reasons and it's horrible. And when they kill so they can be with the one they love, like Mr. Baker did, it is worse than anything else you can do unless you're killing two people. And that's about what they're trying to do. Kill Baker's life and Austin's with the deal and get her. Again, I don't question their sincerity, although I question a lot of what we're going to go into because I think they misrepresented the evidence to you, but I sure as hell question their judgment. So Mr. Baker testifies, and he gives us this letter. Now, it didn't hit us immediately. We're a little dense, me and Mr. Dawes. But it sure got the attention of our co-counsel, who are a little younger, a little smarter. Why would you write a letter trying to minimize what you did, trying to make it look like an accident, or at the very least self-defense, making it look like I didn't go to kill him at all? I went to drop off a note and he happened to be home, and you can read the letter. It's full of lies. And he certainly doesn't name Mr. Austin, we know that. But why in God's name would you write a letter apologizing for how you killed him and saying I didn't mean it and it wasn't intentional and it was an accident to somebody who did it with you, who knew all about it, who conspired with you to kill him? The letter says it happened because I was delivering you a card and things went astray. Things went astray. And it was my fault, but it wasn't intentional. Well, the conspiracy was intentional. We know that. He was stabbed in the heart and the leg and the neck. There was nothing accidental about it. But he wants her to believe it was accidental, and he sends it to the very person that they say wanted it done to begin with. It doesn't make any sense. And when did he write it? He wrote it, 4 years later? 5 years later? 2017 to 2023? 6 years later? Couldn't write it before because he was fighting the case with her. And it convinced her, we got to fight this together or we are dead together. But once he realized he could not win the case, maybe because he thought he didn't have a good attorney, the attorney never went to him, whatever, but the real reason, let's be honest, he pled guilty, he accepted the charge, is because he did it. And his DNA was all over the house, the sink, the bedroom, the Porsche, the brakes, the garage, the cell box. So he pleads and he writes this letter. And you have to ask yourself, why? Can't fool her if she's in on it. But if she was not part of the conspiracy, that letter makes a little sense. A lot of sense. Especially if he loves her in his sick, perverted way. And he kept professing that he did. And I only assume that if he was willing to brutally kill somebody in cold blood, that could have been the reason. And we know from life experiences and, yes, the TV shows and all the rest, that killing someone so you can be with your lover is not exactly unusual, unfortunately, or rare. And it happened here. Okay. There's one more thing that also kind of goes under the topic of little things mean a lot, although it's not so little. With all the things that were being deleted to cover up the affair, and we deleted this and they deleted that, and the day of the murder they deleted this. Turned out they deleted everything, and she wanted everything deleted because she didn't want the affair to come out, whether it was the photographs or the statements or anything, and with good reason. You saw what she was made to look like on the witness stand with that. But this is a text that is recovered by the prosecution experts. They were required under law, and they did, to turn over to us everything that they did in their investigation that was relevant to the issue of guilt or innocence. And one of the things we found that had not been deleted was a text from Mr. Baker to Ms. Sementilli under the timestamp 1/24/2/17/205/12. So I assume it's 2 in the morning, right? 2 in the afternoon. Had a 50-50 chance and screwed it up. 2 in the afternoon, incoming call. And what does it say? I'm so sorry. Now, sorry for what? For what? If he conspired to kill her with her, he ain't going to be so sorry. It should say something like, we did it. I got it. I got it done. We're together. Whatever. Something sick like that, but something that at least would be consistent with someone who's just committed a murder for his lover to get rid of the one person standing in the way of he and his lover going to Italy or Las Vegas or God knows one of the stories he told, but never in front of her. Why say I'm sorry unless she is not and was not involved in the conspiracy to commit murder? And as far as he knows, no matter what he may think about the state of their marriage, or how unhappy she may be, or why she's with him, which is a pretty good indication that she wants him more than Fabio, or at least she's sharing him, which is what, as we said, she could have continued to do for years and years if she wanted to, or she could have left him and gone back to Fabio. There was no reason to kill him. I'm so sorry. That is something you say to someone who's lost a loved one and you want them to know that you're sorry about it. And after all, Mr. Baker is her lover. They have had an affair from January 2016, and now we're in January 2017. But he doesn't want her to know that he killed Fabio. He wants her to believe, as she did, and they all did, what the police told them. This was a no-knock burglary, robbery that went astray. And they lied to her and her family and her friends and everyone for all those months. And Baker says, I'm so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, if you combine I'm so sorry the next day with I apologize for how I did it, which is after he obviously has admitted he was the killer, then I submit to you on that evidence alone, you could and you should find that there is a reasonable doubt of the guilt of Miss Sementilli. You really think he's smart enough to think, I'm going to send a text the next day that says I'm so sorry, so eventually, if we're caught, I can have Mr. Levine put it up on the board, and that's going to be a good point. Not for me, but they're going to falsely accuse Monica, and that's going to help her. He knows that the day after the murder. The only thing he knows the day after the murder is that he and Austin killed Fabio Sementilli. They stabbed him to death. And the only other thing he knows the day after the murder is that she was not involved. And he did exactly what any of us might have done in a similar situation, though I doubt we would be in an affair with someone like Robert Baker. But we would say, I'm so sorry. Isn't that what the people who came to the wake said? The first of numerous misstatements, and that's being generous, by the prosecution, that why would Monica invite her gym rats to this wake, or whatever you want to call it, celebration of his life, mourning of his life, of his death, a day or two after? Why would you do that if she wasn't involved with Baker? Well, she didn't do that, remember? It was a testimony of one of the gym rats, people from LA Fitness, who told you on the stand, and wasn't a favorable witness for Monica, because they were saying, oh yeah, they wanted to be together, and that's what Baker was saying. Of course, they said all that after the arrest, never before. Why don't we go and pay our condolences to Monica and her family? That's the evidence. She didn't invite him. Yeah, that would have been a little suspicious. What's suspicious is that he came. Or she didn't look at him and pull him aside and say, get the hell out of here. What are you doing here? We just killed him and you're showing up? No, she sat with him and she talked with him. And she was criticized for having him come out to the patio where Fabio was killed, where everybody came out. Why wouldn't you take him out there? She didn't conspire to kill her husband. All she knows is that he's still her lover. And at that point, she doesn't have much else. She's not going to run around and telling her family and Fabio's family, oh, I had nothing to do with the murder, but by the way, me and Mr. Baker have been having an affair for a year. So they kept it secret, as you would expect. And the other thing I think I said to you yesterday, and I'll just repeat it for the last time, if they were so smart, well, first of all, Ms. Silverman characterizes Baker as dumb. And she may be right. But again, he was smart enough, she says, to write, I'm so sorry, even though Monica knows he did it, and he was smart enough to send a letter apologizing for how he killed Fabio and making it look like an accident to the very person who wanted him to kill Fabio. You got to be pretty smart to do that, or you got to be telling the truth, which he was. We could put the next slide up there. I spoke to you a lot about Christopher Austin yesterday, and I submitted to you he lied through his teeth to get the deal. And the judge will tell you these are some of the factors you can consider when you try to determine if a witness is telling the truth or not. The ability of the witness to remember, character and quality, the demeanor, existence or non-existence. So let's put that back. The existence or non-existence of a bias, interest, or other motive. The attitude of the witness towards the action or giving the testimony. Now, that doesn't just apply. I was just thinking to Mr. Austin. That applies to all the witnesses who took the stand in this case. And we'll get to them in a second. Because, as I told you, by the time they were interviewed, by the time the police got around to interviewing them, they had already been told Monica killed Fabio with Baker. And if you don't think that was some kind of bias against her, then you didn't listen to this evidence, sir. As I told you before, had they interviewed these people before the arrest, and it was 4 months, more important, had any of those people come forward, Luigi, Marco, Meyer, Eberbacher, Truesdale, anybody from Wella, had any of those people come forward, there they are, several of them, had any of them come forward before the arrest of Monica and Baker, 4 months, and said, you know what? I think you ought to take a look at Monica. She's acting a little strange. She's harassing us about the insurance. She's bugging us about going on trips. She wants this, she wants that. Why don't you consider that maybe she knows more than she's saying? None of them said that until the arrest. Then they were told, we've got it, we've solved it. Not really. 8 more years to solve it. We solved it. She did it. She killed her husband with Baker. And now we'd like to talk to you about what you know about the case. And suddenly you heard the animosity and the hatred that came out, some subtly from Wella, because they're not family, but they considered Fabio family, and some from Fabio's family, who now understood, because the police never get it wrong, right? Never get it wrong. That when they didn't say, we've made an arrest, there's going to be a prosecution and the truth will come out, hopefully. They said, we've made an arrest and we found her. We found what happened. She killed him with Baker. There's no question in our mind. On what? On all those phone calls that they were making months before? On the fact that she took 11 minutes to get from Target to her house? I'll explain to you what that means. So they didn't just say they arrested her, they said she was guilty. And that is not their job. It is their job. They were as obsessed with getting her as the police were, but at least they prosecuted her in an open court where jurors get a chance to hear all the evidence, all of it. They didn't convict her in the court of public opinion, which is what happens when the police announce, we've caught the murderers. Every one of those witnesses who testified had some bias against Monica and started to look at her a different way. And you know that because a loving family, and it was, who had come down for those 4 months to help in any way they could. All of them. Arella, Marco, Luigi, all of them. Helping with the funeral, planning it, all of them. Doing everything they could for a grieving wife of their beloved sister, brother, or father, or uncle, or whatever. Suddenly, Jessica and Bella were non compos mentis. They were out of the picture. They were no longer part of this close-knit family. They weren't being invited again to family get-togethers in Canada, and they weren't flying down to take care of the family anymore. And you know what? I don't think it's right, but I don't blame them. They were told that their mother killed Fabio. All of that as a result of the arrest. None of it was their opinion. Oh, they were buying cars, and you know, she spent too much. My God, they bought a car, a Mustang, on credit? Had to sell the truck because they wouldn't keep the lease going, it wasn't in their name? Sold the Porsche, maybe, because did you really want, even though it was his favorite car, driving around in the Porsche where he was murdered, or at least the blood of his murderers was all over the car? Are these indications of guilt? Why do you think they put on the the Ford salesman and the Fiat salesman and the car salesman and the lease salesman, and they must have put on 10 witnesses. But one of the girls, Bella, I think, had an accident and they had to get a new car. Insurance paid for it. Even that was brought out. Fabio made sure they each had their own car. He had two he drove, the Porsche and the truck. So what? He worked hard. He deserved it. He gave to his kids. That's what a father does. Trust me. Everything was turned upside down. As Luigi said, the clouds became clear. Back to the witness. And I again ask you to look at this involving Mr. Austin. An admission by the witness of untruthfulness. Well, we know he lied throughout his original statements. Said he knew her, didn't know her, said nothing about Monica having anything to do with it, said nothing about the attempted murder the night before, lied about everything. The witness's prior conviction of a felony, well, they can use that against Mr. Baker as if they needed it to show that he was untrustworthy. And again, we're not saying the letter and the I'm sorry is evidence of his honesty. We're saying there's no way you write that letter if you're writing it to the person who conspired with you to kill the very person you're saying I'm sorry about and apologizing for the manner in which you did it. But the last one, of course, really applies, whether the witness is testifying under a grant of immunity or leniency. Now, why is that up there? Why will the judge read you that? Because that is the law. And as I've tried to point out throughout this case, and especially your oath to presume innocence and not convict unless it is proven beyond a reasonable doubt, that's one of the instructions also. So you can consider the fact that Mr. Austin got leniency. And boy, did he get leniency. Now, the other thing I told you, that even the manner in which he was questioned by the prosecution was hardly designed to get the truth. Now, they'll say it was, and the judge is going to decide if he told the truth. The judge wasn't there for the proffer. The judge wasn't there deciding if he gets the deal. Now, if you wanted the judge to decide if he was telling the truth, get the judge there to listen. Then I bet you wouldn't have heard stuff like this from Miss Silverman. Approximately how many three-way calls between you, Baker, and Al do you think you had? Answer, I don't want to lie to you, Beth. Oh, that's a good start. Question. Now, the question should have been, so tell me how many, right? That's the open-ended question. This is the leading question. More than one? Answer, more than one. Question. Should have been how many more? No. More than two? Answer. About three, maybe. Okay. Could it be more than three? She's thinking it's going to take more than 3 calls to plot a murder that you're supposed to be plotting from July at a hotel you were supposed to be at that you were never at, and plotting it in January and December. 3? With Birdsong and Austin? Not enough. Could it have been more than 3? Not how many. Possibly. Could it have been as many as half a dozen or more? Why is she telling him how many? Is that what Birdsong said? Certainly wasn't what the record showed. Could have been as many as half a dozen or more? Possibly, yes. All right? You're going to see. He loves the word possibly. I believe, I understood, I assumed, from someone who's being given half his life back the answer should be a little more clear than that. And he should have a pretty good idea, because you don't kill somebody every day, how many times you conspired with the other parties to do it. More than half a dozen or more? Possibly, yes. And did any of the three-way calls between you, Baker, and Al relate specifically to this job of getting rid of Monica's husband? Couldn't even call him Fabio because he didn't even know what the hell Fabio's name was. Now, there's the question, right? Not how many calls you had, but did any of them have to do specifically to the job of getting rid of Monica's husband, killing him? That's what they want to know. Now, the question should have been, what were the calls about? Let him tell you. Don't tell him what they were about and get him to say yes. But you know what? No audible response. You play that tape. It's a pretty simple question. Did any of the calls have to do specifically to this job of getting rid of Monica's husband? He couldn't even say yes. And you know what? That wasn't good. Not for Mr. Aval, who worked real hard to get him this deal, and not for Mr. Austin, who has to give truthful and valuable testimony. So what happens? We can leave the room too if you want. May I just have one moment? Mr. Aval says. Miss Silverman? Yep. And we're going to move you guys to another room, so that's nothing's being recorded in your conversation. That's important. This is attorney-client. God forbid they should agree to have it recorded. If they could do, what's he going to tell them? To lie? We're going to have you guys move to the other room. Nothing's recorded. It's confidential. It's 11:54. Mr. Austin and his lawyer are leaving the room. Well, they're only gone 3 minutes. Doesn't take long to say, "You idiot! You want your deal? You better tell him it had to do with Monica. Get the hell out there." And that's me writing the script. But it was something like that. They get back on the record. It's 11:57, Ms. Silverman says. We're back on the record. And the question that is asked is not, well, what is your answer now that you've spoken to your lawyer and he's told you what to say? The question is, I just had a brief conversation with your lawyer, says Ms. Silverman. I know that the position that you're in here really isn't good, right? Understatement. No audible response. Question. Like, we understand how difficult it is to be in your position. However, you know why you're here. Yes, ma'am. Doesn't take much to figure out why he's there and how difficult it is, really. Is it difficult to tell the truth and get a reduced sentence? It's difficult to tell the truth and make it valuable. Question. You have said on multiple occasions from what I've read that you're ashamed of what happened and your participation in it, and I understand that. And like I said, that you're in a very difficult position, but how forthcoming you are is appreciated. We appreciate that, and will be something that obviously is going to be taken into account with respect to any potential disposition that we offer you through your counsel. It's a very legalistic way of saying it's time for you to put up or shut up. And now Mr. Aval comes through and says, and I have advised him that it is in his best interest to be as forthcoming and as truthful as possible and to answer all of your questions to the best of his ability. Ms. Silverman, thank you, Mr. Aval. Well, why did he have to be told by his attorney, you know, it's in the best interest for you to tell the truth? I thought that's what he swore to tell the truth to begin with. I thought that's why he was coming down there. Wasn't he? To tell the truth? Hadn't they already gone through that? Took an oath? That's gibberish. That means I think it's in your best interest to tell them what they want. You told them, and I told them you could do, or we wouldn't have had this damn proffer. What, we're going to have a proffer, and the guy's going to say, I don't remember how many calls I had, and I don't remember if it had to do with Monica's murder? It's the only thing he didn't say in Vancouver till he got his lawyer. Miss Silverman. Thank you, Mr. Aval, for reminding your client to be forthcoming and truthful, which they wouldn't have needed the private conference if he had been doing that. Now, Ms. Silverman goes on, and I think we all believe, you're doing exactly that. Really? At that point where she says, well, the three-way calls have to do with the killing of Monica's husband, and he says, doesn't answer, and he has to have a meeting, and what does the prosecution say? We all believe you're doing exactly that. If it gets to a point, however, where I don't, I have a lot of work, and I bet she does. We all do, especially when you're trying cases like this. I have a lot of work. We all do. And you know, I've walked out of proffer sessions on many occasions. But I'm so appreciative of the way that you are handling yourself and trying to remember. So, and he says, I'm trying to remember, so forgive me. And she says, oh, there's no need to forgive. There's no apology needed. I just wanted to put that on the record. I also want to put on the record, by the way, that since we're getting into this, if any other individuals besides Monica and Baker are offered dispositions, assuming one is offered, it will be continued upon you. In other words, if we offer you a disposition, you not only got to testify against Monica, you got to testify against anyone else involved in the conspiracy. You understand? Yes, ma'am. And there may be follow-ups to the interview. You know, we may come back to you on another day. If we get to the point where you're exhausted, we'll pick another day. I hope not, because I'd like to get as much done. And it's for you to have to be worrying about it overnight. And we don't want to have to transport you back and forth. And he says, I have to suffer, so it's okay. I have to suffer. Really? Suffer? This is suffering? No, suffering is what he did to Fabio Sementilli. So then they go on. None of that was necessary to a simple question of how many three-way calls did you have? One, maybe two, maybe three. Yeah, 4. Yeah, possibly. Yeah. And the calls had to do, right, with killing Monica's husband, right? And then you heard. Now, don't get me wrong. From that point on, there are 20 more lies he tells about the knife, about the gold coins, about everything. Because it is all a lie to get his deal. And if you have any doubt about that, please have the reporter play back to you, and you will have the transcript if you want it to help guide you in listening to it, to that proffer session. Because based on that proffer session, Mr. Austin was given his deal of the century. And all he had to do was get up on that stand and say, Monica knew. All he had to do. The rest was just frosting on the cake. How he got the coins, when he got the coins, we'll get to that. I think it's necessary. When he got there, when he left, what happened there, who got the wires, who went through the house, who was in the trunk, who wasn't in the trunk, who did the stabbing. See, that he should have no problem with. Because that's the truth. He killed, with Robert Baker, Fabio Sementilli. That's what it says. No man has a good enough memory to be a successful liar. Well, he didn't have a good enough memory to be a liar about her, but he damn well had a good enough memory to remember that he killed him. And I'm going to cite to you, before we end here, exactly what he says about that. Because I am still, not that my opinion means a damn thing, it's the evidence, still not pleased with him getting this deal, because I think the evidence showed he lied. It's the only reason she's being prosecuted, his lie. Throw it out. Yeah, throw it out and see what the other evidence is. And I'm also not comfortable with how he was treated on the witness stand compared to Mr. Baker. Whatever you can say about Mr. Baker, he had a reason. I'm not going to call it a motive, a reason. He wanted her for himself. Not a good reason is never a good reason for murder unless you're acting in self-defense or fighting a war. But at least he had a reason. He knew after that Christmas this wasn't going to go on forever. And he didn't like the way it was going on. She could have just carried it out all the way. She was never going to marry him or bring him home, or even after the murder, when she had no idea he was involved, that she'd go home and for Passover and say, "Hey, look what I brought to the Seder." Well, you're not Jewish, so that's the Last Supper, I think, in Christianity. Whatever it was, she wasn't liable to do that. She wasn't. I don't think she's bringing Baker home and saying, "Wow, look who Fabio was tragically killed. Look who I'm with. My new mate." So she continued to keep it secret, and I submit to you, I hope, we'll never know, that eventually she would have realized he was nothing more than a whoremonger, a slut maker, a woman controller, a child molester, and eventually a killer. But the point is, he had a reason and a goal to get rid of Fabio so he had a chance to keep Monica. What was Mr. Austin's reason? What was his goal? The nerve of him to say, "Because he asked me to." He asked me to. Then to lie through his teeth. Remember what he said originally? It's all in the record. It's all in the cross-examination of Mr. Austin that I went through with him. Wasn't that difficult? There was a transcript of the Perkins interview and the October 2nd interview when Miss Stagel went up there. It was all there. Tell me what you need, I'll give it to you. Tell me what you want, I'll give it to you. It's all there. What was his reason for doing it? Money? You'll see that he is all over the place with money. There is no reason other than Mr. Baker said, "I need your help." This guy with a wife and kid who works in a parole office is going to go down and twice try to kill someone, and the second time do it. For what? Because he asked me to, and he told me he would take care of me. I trusted him. You know what he meant by take care of me? He meant, don't snitch me out. And you know what? Baker kept his word on that. It wasn't Baker that got Mr. Austin arrested and convicted for a lesser crime. It was Mr. Austin himself. Then Baker said, yeah, it was him. So he's being told down there, you better get her. She's the only one left. You listen to it all. It's not even close. You got to change your story. She's the bitch who's getting out of it. For some reason, he thinks she's getting out of it. He says nothing about, oh, I know what I was thinking of. And when he's talking to the Perkins person, and I believe even the detectives who went up there, the two gentlemen behind me and Miss Daigle, yeah, they even questioned him about it. You know what? Yeah, okay, there's some of the things Mr. Babbage is putting up there. You want to put up some of the other ones? If they can get that man and they want the big fish, if they can get that motherfucker, they ain't giving a fuck about you. I mean, Jesus, go on. Of course, you're going to have to switch your story up a little bit. This is a police officer telling a potential witness, you're going to have to switch your story up. Because what you told me when you believed I was just another suspect like you in trouble, what you told me was you didn't know shit about her. You didn't even know her name. All right, go on. You know the situation. You got to save yourself, man. That bitch is trying to get out. I guess he means that bitch is trying to get out of the prosecution. Of course, this is a police officer saying this, not a jury. At this time, I'm just being honest. Fuck that. Fuck her life. It's her life or your life. Austin, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm looking for some type of deal to go home to my girls. That's the Miss Daigle. She says, right, I understand. Okay. And then what Austin says after that to Miss Daigle? What do you need from me just so I can go home to go see my girls? Now, to her credit, Miss Daigle doesn't say, yeah, we want you to come up here and lie, say something that's not true. But he refuses to go on with any more conversations about what he knows or doesn't know about the only thing they care about, because they already have Baker pled and sentenced. They already have Austin admitting that he killed him. That's in the rest of the proffer, and the only thing they don't have is her. I keep saying that, I know, but that is why you are here. That is why she is here. So Austin gives them what they want so he can go home and see his girls. Is anything more obvious than that? Now at that point, when he said, tell me what you need, I'll tell you whatever you want, and they know the Perkins tape because Perkins is one of them, I submit to you, if I'm the DA's office, I say, we can't trust this guy. Unless we can corroborate what he's saying, in other words, if there's other evidence that corroborates what he's saying, like an overheard phone call, or records of a three-way call, or maybe someone else who heard him talking to Monica, or maybe proof that Monica met him at the Aria Hotel, where they tried for 2 months and 12 witnesses, and God knows how many undercover officers to prove they met at the Aria, and they couldn't even prove that. And eventually he says, no, I met her at the LA Fitness. If I'm the prosecutor, I say, I don't think we can trust this guy to tell the truth. Especially after the proffer, which means his attorney obviously goes in and tells the DA, this is what I think my client can do for you. It's valuable. And then they decide even to give him the proffer. I might have concluded, if I was the DA, I don't think we can trust this guy as far as we can throw him. Well, I was wrong. The next thing we know, they're going on with the proffer. And I read you about, can we have a minute? You come back and then he knows what to say. This is what he says for the mainly about Monica's involvement. I believe, I assume, there's also should be up there, I understand, it's my assumption, not once did Austin firsthand overhear any conversation between Monica and Baker, nor did he ever see one text message between the two of them. Austin never had any texts or phone calls with Monica. After extensive analysis by data experts, there's no evidence of any link between the devices of Monica and Austin, 3 ways or others. Now, why is that important? First of all, it means that all Austin is going to be able to tell you is simply, Baker told me that Monica wanted him dead. Baker asked me if I would kill him. Baker told me that Monica said she's sending him to the foe. Baker told me that Monica said he's going to be home. Baker told me blah, blah, blah. So all he has to add to what Baker was honestly involved with is, Monica told me that. Monica told me that. That's all he adds. And he isn't even up there if he doesn't get his deal. Were you aware that Monica and Al were tight, or that they were in communication? I assumed that they were, because of how much whatever. You mean the 22nd? That's the night before, as I recall. I believed he texted her and said it didn't work. And we went back to his pad and just crashed. Leave that up a second. This is what Austin testified to. If you remember, he backed away from killing Fabio, which should have led to him flying home, and Fabio would be alive and we wouldn't be here. But of course, they go back to the house, and he's apologizing for not doing it. And according to him, Baker has to tell Monica it didn't work. So he says, I believe he texted her and said it didn't work. That is all he says. Not that I heard him, not that I was there, not that I watched the text, not that I listened to the phone call. I believe he texted her. Well, do you know, did you see or hear? Did he tell you how he communicated with Monica after that? That would have been important. Yeah, he texted. He started texting, and I assumed it was Monica. Why did you assume that? Because he didn't really move until he got a text of some type of call from her. Well, you're on a 3-way. I'd expect it's while you're on the 3-way. Oh, never mind. Oh, that means I got to figure out where I was standing. And any of those phone contacts you're having with them, are they all from your actual phone? I think so. Then we get on. These are all different clips. It was my understanding, or different subjects, that when I flew down, Mr. Fabio was never supposed to be killed in his home. But I believe that when, I just couldn't do it. I believe that Monica wanted it done, so I think that's why she told Baker he would be at home alone. I believe. Is there ever, I know, I heard it, I listened? Gee, if I was Mr. Austin and Mr. Baker was saying, Monica wants him dead, I would have said, if you want me to help kill this guy, because I think you want him dead, but I'm not going to help you unless she wants him dead. All he had to do was give him the phone and say, here, Monica, tell him. Hi, I want him dead. Didn't happen. Couldn't happen. She didn't want him dead. So all of this knowledge, as couched as it is, and I believe, I understand, I assume that Baker talked to Monica, and that Monica told him she wanted him dead, and that Monica wanted it done. That's why she told Baker that he would be at home alone. And how does he know that? Because he says that's what Baker told me. Well, it's missing something. I have no doubt at some point Baker told him Monica said he was home that day, but not to kill him. He wanted to know where Fabio was every day, and he did. He stopped. He even ended up at the same restaurant as the girls were. Suddenly they get a flat tire, and who's driving behind him to fix it up? Robert Baker. What a sicko. Who knows what would happen with the girls if this had carried on. They were 16 and 18. My God, they were senior citizens for Baker compared to the 14-year-old. I don't think age was any issue for him. But let's let this guy stay on the streets for 4 months while we decide if we can actually get evidence against Monica, because she's the one we want. Let's go on. Turn that off for a sec, if you can. I'll go back to the last one. So, you'll see a jury instruction, and we'll get to that, where it talks about you cannot find that someone's an accomplice to a murder or any crime unless there's some independent evidence corroborating what the accomplice is supposed to be saying. So if the accomplice says to you that there it is, to corroborate the testimony of an accomplice in this case is Mr. Austin. Baker's the murderer, Austin's the accomplice. That means he aided him, knowing what he was going to do. There must be evidence of some act or fact related to the crime which, if believed by you, by itself and without any aid, interpretation, or direction from the testimony of the accomplice, Mr. Austin, tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime charged. However, it's not necessary that the corroboration be sufficient in itself to establish every element or to corroborate every fact. All right, I was going to say let me put it into English for you, but there's the English. You're bright people. You can understand what's going to happen, what it's going to say. In determining whether an accomplice has been corroborated, you must assume the testimony of the accomplice has been removed from the case. You must determine whether there is any remaining evidence which tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime. If there's no independent evidence which tends to connect the defendant with the commission of the crime, the testimony of the accomplice is not corroborated. If there's independent evidence which you believe, then the testimony of the accomplice is corroborated. Okay, let's discuss that.
What do you do? Let's take our morning recess. Let's take our morning recess. 15 minutes. The evidence supplies. We'll see you back here in 15 minutes. Mr. Levine, you may continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, we're winding down, as I'm sure you're happy to hear. As you may tell, I like closing argument to include two things. Number one, the facts. Obviously, we're not arguing the facts to you. You have a right to say, well, the guy's full of, you know what. That's not what happened. That's not what's testified to. All we have is our credibility. If we mistake the facts, that's a problem. But the other thing is, assuming the facts are there, you want to know how I feel the facts apply to the law in your decision. And again, all I have is my credibility. I tell you something, well, this means this and this means this, and it's way out of line, then you have a right to go back there and say, yeah, I think Mr. Levine I know it's his job to represent his client, but that didn't happen, and everything I am telling you, because I believe it's what the evidence shows, and why I believe that your verdict should be not guilty in this case. Not guilty. Not proven. So let's go on with that. One thing that I wanted to say before we go back to the slides, like I said, I always wondered, they had these 60 hours of plus recordings of Mr. Baker and Ms. Sementilli in the jail cell, when either they knew they were being recorded or didn't know or whatever. Now, they ended in June of 2018. 1 year is when she broke it off. There were no more three-way calls, no more kites, no more meetings, no more talking, no more nothing. She had it with him. Wish it had taken less than a year, but it took a year to realize that this guy was full of shit. And he's tying her to his defense, wanting her to give him information that he couldn't get from his attorney, and then saying, this is what we got to do about this, this is what we got to do about this, and weaving facts that did occur into a defense for Mr. Baker. And one of the things, I don't know if it would be up there or not, that is clear is when he said, if I have to, I'll get up there and lie. And what he said right after that was, lie that I did it, or that I didn't do it. I have to get up there and lie. I'll lie that I did it, even though I didn't. So it wasn't like he was lying for her. He was lying to get up and say that he did it, and she didn't. The other thing that always bothered me and still does is they were talking in the car. Remember? Somebody told. Remember that? Why didn't she say, oh my God, Austin told? Oh my God, they must have caught Austin and he told on us. Why aren't any of those conversations about Austin? Hey, do you think they'll get Austin? Have you talked to Austin? What happened to Austin? She didn't know anything about Austin, this so-called conspiracy where she's telling Baker that she wants this done and Baker's then relaying it to Austin. We already went through that. There's no corroboration. There's no evidence of her involvement with Austin other than Austin saying it. And you don't even hear Austin saying it to her. But why in 60 hours, if she conspired to kill her husband, they say, with Christopher Austin, do you not hear her say his name once? Because she was not involved. And how the hell would she know that Austin was involved if she wasn't involved until he was arrested 8 years later? You think about that, if you would. All right, let's go on with the slides. He said we talk about the faux restaurant. Fabio picked a faux restaurant, initiated the first text to Monica, and they claimed that Monica deleted the faux message from Fabio to hide this setup for him to be killed. That is just completely false. That message is not deleted in the records. Monica cleared all of her web history, like you do sometimes when you're searching for restaurants or whatever, you'll clear it. But they said, that's not important. Yeah, she was sending him the pho that night. He wanted to make sure where it was. No one's doubting that. That occurred. The question is, was it a conspiracy between them to kill Fabio? So she clears her web history, not just selectively deleting special web history relating to pho. We'll get to the proof of that. And they arrived, Monica and Fabio even begin communicating about pho hours. That is, Baker and Austin arrived hours before Monica and Fabio allegedly even begin communicating about pho. Now, they communicated about it, but not about having him killed, because if it was a conspiracy, all she has to do is call Baker and say, he's leaving the house now, get over there. Baker lives in the neighborhood, what is he, 5 minutes away? Call 5 minutes before he leaves. He's just going to the garage. Why would they be there hours before he even goes to pick up the food, which I think was at 6 or something? They got there at 3. Austin says it happened at 9. This is not complicated. This is Monica telling Baker, like she does every day, here's what we're doing tonight. We're going to have food out. Fabio's going to pick it up. There's conversations about pho, Google, whatever. And he does. And Baker gets there at 3 so he doesn't miss him. But she doesn't set it up for him to be killed. Because all she has to do again is at 5:36, when we know Fabio shows up, is send a message, Fabio's leaving the house. It can happen. Never happens. They're there for 3 hours waiting around. Let's go on. And here's where the exhibit shows. The prosecution told you, and you have a right to hold them to the standard that you'd hold any witness. They shouldn't be presenting you evidence that's not true. It shows the texts are not deleted. That X means that these texts were not deleted. You see, phone near me, Google search. That was supposed to have been a text that Monica deleted. These text messages, if you can see there in the web, it was not, well, the web history was deleted. I got a little backwards, I'm sorry. The web history was deleted, but none of the other texts were deleted. Phone near me. Let's go to the next slide. She doesn't delete. They use it. First of all, she never deletes the messages involving foe. Let me get that straight. The messages that are supposed to be sent involving foe to Baker and so forth are never deleted. The only thing that's deleted is the web history. So let's get that straight. I think I mixed it up a little bit. They're trying to say because she knew he was going to be killed that night, that Monica deleted them intentionally. The prosecution says Monica deleted her text message on January 22nd, 2017 about Foe. That just isn't true. The records show those messages were not deleted. They're trying to say that she specifically deleted the web history for specific crimes, specific entries on January 22nd, 2017. Again, that isn't true. She cleared all of the web history before June 2017, before even the murder took place, just the same as you would do when you cleared. And regardless of what Austin says about when he and Baker went to Foe, the records show the prosecution's own expert, Cy Ray, tells us that they got there in the area of 3:30 in the afternoon. The phone is pinging in that area all that time, and his phone stays in that area till past 6 p.m. for over 2.5 hours. So why is Baker there for 2.5 hours if Monica's directing it? If Monica was actually directing the murder, she would have messaged Baker, I'm sending Fabio there. And that's why he gets there 2 hours before. Take a look at the records. The records show that those messages were not deleted. The messages that the prosecution says that were. You can see on the left side there's our X's, which mark where something has been deleted. See those X's? And it shows the web history deleted, which we talked about. All of her history, but look at the instant messages at the top there. See those in the square? I got it right. There's no X marked to those. If there's no X, then it shows those messages were not deleted. Completely and act the opposite of what the prosecution is telling you. Throughout this case, they're trying to tell you that Monica intentionally deleted messages that she knew would be incriminating. Those were not deleted. The reason they were not deleted is because in her mind they were not incriminating. They were just indicating messages involving Fabio going to the Foe to pick up the food. If it was to go to kill him, it would have been deleted. The prosecution told you they were deleted. The expert said they were not deleted. Let's go on. What else did the prosecution do that we believe can be shown to have been inaccurate? They used an inaccurate record to try to prove that Monica used this lifestyle lounge application to send Baker the Foe location where Fabio was going to be. Remember that? The so-called faux location was sent to show where Fabio was going to be. So we called a defense expert, Neil Broom, who testified that that record was completely wrong. Completely wrong. That lifestyle lounge, which they made a big deal about, which is kind of a swinging lounge, was used to communicate that location to Fabio, where Fabio was going to be, and send that to Baker, and that's completely false. And the important thing is the last entry there. The prosecution could have put back on a prosecution data expert to say that the record was accurate, but they didn't, because it was not. So you have incorrect versus correct, and I don't expect you to weed through all that, except to know that the prosecution has presented you a fact that they thought was incriminating to Monica, and it was wrong. Let's move on. Now we get to January 23rd, the date of the murder. The date when they claimed there was this small window, remember, that they had to fit in this murder to make it successful and so that it wouldn't be discovered before it had concluded. A small window. It didn't have to be a small window. As you'll see, Monica controlled all the time when people arrived and left, except Fabio, and Fabio was home. Everybody knew that, and we knew that from the testimony of everyone, from Fabio's own testimony through the messages. Now, I still don't have the answer for the colonoscopy, neither do the people. Why he made that up, and he made up that it went well and so forth. But all that's relevant about that are the times when the calls are made by Wella to him. So let's start out with January 23rd. And what we are saying is throughout these timeline, right from the beginning to the end, that it shows Monica did not assist the murder. Monica, let's go. Monica's last, let's go back to the previous one. Go to the top. Monica sends a Viber message to Baker on 3:36, and that's when Baker leaves the Target parking lot. There's no messaging between Baker and Monica at all between that time and the time Fabio searches on the internet on his phone on 4:35, when they are already there at the house, at the location. And the next message is not till 4:46, which is after the murder has taken place. And Fabio is driving away, the Porsche is driving away from the home, and Bella comes back. So look, there's no messaging between 3:36 and 4:46. There's no messaging between Monica and Baker for this whole 1 hour. No way she could have assisted during this key time when the significant events are occurring. And what do I mean by that? Why not communicate to him that Jessica has left? Yes, she texts Jessica, don't be late for your babysitting, but how does she know Jessica has left the house and is gone? She's supposed to be viewing everything and telling everybody. She never calls Jessica at the babysitter and say, have you gotten there? At 3:40, this is all from the prosecution's evidence, Monica texts Jessica, don't be late for babysitting. 6:41, Jessica replies, I won't. 3:41. 3:47, Jessica leaves the house. Now that's when Monica should have sent a Viber message or any message to Baker saying, Jessica left the house. Fabio's home alone. You know Monica's not there, and you know Bella has gone for her interview after school. No assist when we're told Monica has total control, can view the whole scene, is communicating with Baker. It's a small window. What is she doing to enable this to occur and occur successfully, this so-called co-conspirator? The IDMS, viewing home surveillance camera. 4 o'clock is the only time from the data records that Monica could have been watching the home during using that app. That's it. 4 o'clock. Nothing is happening at that time that has to be relayed to Baker. No messages at all from Monica to Baker anywhere near this time to say again that Jessica is left and the coast is clear. How would she know that? She'd see Jessica's car's not there, right? Okay. You cannot even view the cameras and communicate on the messaging app at the same time. In other words, they want you to believe she's, looking at the app and she's walking out the door, she's messaging, and she misses the. You can't do both. Either you're communicating or you're watching. You can't do both at the same time. And there's no evidence Baker ever downloaded or used that app on any of his devices. Let's get to the more crucial and interesting times. 4:18. Baker and Austin arrived at the Sementilli house. Now, Bella was gone, we know. Look at the previous slide if you can, Jeremy. Bella was gone at school. Monica wasn't there. Jessica leaves at 3:47. Okay, go back to the next one. 4:18 is what, 20 minutes later? They arrive at the house. Why? Fabio's home alone. Monica's telling him everything. She's in on it. She's seeing everything. She knows everything. Why does it take them a half hour when they have this small window of time, which turns out to be 1 minute? No messaging between Monica and Baker to say the coast is clear. So Baker and Austin arrive at the house 33 minutes after Jessica leaves. Baker is coming from a Target parking lot that is less than 10 minutes away, and we're told that Austin's in the trunk, right? Or the back or somewhere. Someone said that. I think it was Mr. Christopher Austin. Even if he has to go back and pick him up, Baker lives 5 minutes away. Why does it take, when they know the house is vacant, except for Fabio, all of that time, 33 minutes before they arrive, from where we know Baker was in Target, and at what time? If Monica was orchestrating, and you can read as well as I, and letting him know everyone's movements, why would he wait so long to get to the house and narrow this small window to carry out the murder? Next. Thank you, Mr. Babbage. It means that when Baker and Austin arrive at the house, it takes them over 20 minutes to get into the house and kill Fabio. For some reason, this slide looked the same. 4:18, Baker and Austin arrive at the house. Okay? Got that straight. 4:35, Fabio is searching on his internet, so he must still be alive. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. Which means, what are Baker and Austin doing between 4:18 and 4:35? This is a small window, remember. They've got to get it done. What are they doing? Are they ransacking the house? No. That's not what Austin says. He says the murder takes place, and then they ransack the house. And we know that's true because there's blood all over the house. Right? There's blood by the door, there's blood going up the stairs, there's blood in the bedroom. Nowhere near the safe. We'll get to that. So Fabio's home. They're at the house at 4:18. It takes them over 30 minutes to get into the house and kill Fabio. Now, it makes no sense for them to wait that long if this was all planned by Monica, and left the door open, and they were meant to be in and out 1, 2, 3. I'm telling you, the evidence is that front door was not open. Austin made that up, like he made up the thing about the passcode for the safe. If that door was open at 4:18, they go in the house, they go right through to the patio. Remember, Baker said he was trying to lure him out, whatever, that takes a little time. They go in, they kill him, they run through the house. How long does that take? 5, 10 minutes, they said. And they're out of there. They should have been out of there by 4:35. At 4:35, they're not even in there, because Fabio is searching the internet on his phone, and we know that. Again, ask yourself and ask the prosecution to explain, what about this small window that they had to get this done in when they're in the house for, what, almost 20 minutes before Fabio is even killed? And we know it has to be after 4:35 because that's when he's on the internet. So it didn't happen just right after that. All right, let's go on. Bella arriving so soon to the killer's leaving. The Porsche drives away from the home at 4:53. Bella approaches the home, and you can see this on those video cameras, right? The ones down at the corner. And when you see all the pictures of the cars coming up in Oakdale to turn on Queen Victoria, we saw all that. You know why they saw that so easy? Let me get back to that. Who told them the very night that her lover is trying to escape with her co-conspirator, Mr. Austin, is Monica Sementilli telling the police who arrived, oh, there's a homeowners association, and I think the name gives the name Leslie something. They live right down the street. Maybe they have a camera. And lo and behold, they had a camera. And that was the first camera that showed all the scenes the prosecution used and the police to show when the cars came up and when the cars left. And that's why Monica was upset that they were looking at it, because she's the one who found it. She wanted to see it too. She told them about it. She told them that night. What? To help catch the people and apprehend the ones that she was conspiring to kill? All right. That's how we know the Porsche is driving away from the home, Baker and Austin, at 4:53, and Bella is approaching the home at 4:54 and finds the body and goes absolutely crazy, as you would expect. 1 minute after they're seen leaving, and I don't have to read this to say it, but I will. It's inconceivable that if Monica was orchestrating this murder, she would allow her own daughter to potentially arrive home when the killers are still there and risk her being murdered. She had every opportunity to delay Bella because she was in communication with her all afternoon, including a call at 4:24 after she knows the killers arrive at the house. Now, why do we say she had every opportunity to do that? Let's go to the next slide. This is Bella testifying in this case about her eyeglasses. Remember? Question, you picked them up, then you drove home, and there was about a minute after the murderers left. Yes, isn't that right, left? Your mom didn't try to delay you going home at all, did she? No. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is going to show you the conversations between, we'll get to that, between Monica and Bella and the doctor. But let me ask you this, and this is what's bothered me for 8 years. Now, the prosecution is going to tell you, because they have to, that Monica Sementilli did not care if her daughter Bella found her dead husband brutally stabbed to death. In fact, it's like she choreographed it to do so. That's how evil she is. That she would allow her own daughter to find the body when all she had to do when she spoke to her daughter, and we'll get to the messages that actually occurred, the phone calls, when she called up about her eyeglasses and said she was going to pick them up and she didn't know if her mother had to be there or not. And her mother said, no, I don't have to be there, just pick them up and go home. I'm making patina or something. All she had to do was say, wait for me at the eyeglasses. I've got to be there. I spoke to Dr. Cohen. Or after you pick up the eyeglasses, let's meet at Starbucks. Tell me how the interview went. Remember, she had the interview for a job. I'll see you at Starbucks. Or meet me at Ralph's, please, and you can help me go shopping, and we'll finish up for dinner tonight. There are 100 different things she could have said to keep Bella away from the house where she knew this murder was going on right at that time. And she did not. Her own daughter. And because there's no way to argue differently that Monica did not have that power and ability and control to do that, they're going to tell you that she didn't give a shit. That she hated her daughter so much, or didn't care so much, or hated Fabio so much, or hated both of them so much, that she not only wanted him brutally killed, but she wanted her daughter to find the body first. And what was her explanation? So Monica could have an alibi. What, they really were going to think when Monica arrived 5 minutes later that she killed Fabio with the knife? With 2 knives and all those wounds? Of course not. She didn't need an alibi. She wasn't the murderer. So why? Why does she let her daughter find the body in this tight? That's the small window they're talking about, which means they knew ahead of time there was a small window. How many times did they tell you in the trial, in the opening, in the closing, they had a small window, they had to get this done? Bullshit. There was no small window. You know why? Because Monica did not have to show up when she did, and Bella did not have to show up when she did. All Monica had to do, again, is, and Bella called her, another misrepresentation by Miss Silverman. Monica called Bella to tell her to go to the eye doctor and pick up her glasses to delay her long enough so she would get home 1 minute after the murder. What if the damn car wouldn't start? What if they couldn't open the garage? Bella called Monica, the record show, and wanted to know if Monica had to be at the doctor for Bella to pick up the glasses. All Monica had to do is say, I'll meet you at the doctor's, pick up the glasses, let's go to Starbucks, let's get a bite, whatever, and get back home maybe 15 minutes after Baker leaves, when Baker can tell her, I've left. Because the whole in their story is that Monica, the conspirator, wants her husband dead. And that's all she cares about. She doesn't care about Bella. But she certainly cares about Baker, and supposedly Austin, that she supposedly knows about. They're leaving the house and driving away in a Porsche that they know the color, they know the model, they know the license. What's the first thing the police are going to do? And I wish they'd done it sooner. Apparently they didn't. It's put out what they used to call an APB. Porsche, license plate, so-and-so, leaving the house, Victoria and Oakdale. Find it, search for it, look for it. Did they? I don't know. But that was what Monica had every right to believe they would have done. So she's giving them, in her plot, 1 minute to get away. Or, God forbid, her daughter walks in on the murder. And not only discovers it and calls 911, but likely is held or killed or whatever, because they can't have that happening. Monica totally controlled the time frames in this case. She had total control. And the problem is, the prosecution forgot that. They kept saying that Monica, I think it was Mitzi who said she took 5 different routes from Ralph's to the house. And the longest it took was 5 minutes. Remember that? So why did it take her 11 minutes to get from Ralph's? Because they saw when she left till she got home. Why? Well, we don't know. There was no camera on her. She could have been on the phone. She could have been smoking a cigarette. That's not the point. It should have taken her 30 minutes to get home with a good excuse. I went to see Bella. Bella gave her that excuse. She called her. She called her and Monica said, go pick up your glasses and go home. And that's only a few miles away. And it always bothered me that when Detective Roberts, I'm sorry I say Mitzi, known her a long time in this case, when Detective Roberts put up that whole elaborate exhibit demonstration, and it was well done, with the cars moving and everything. They had her car, they had Baker's car, they had the Versa, they had everything on their times and everything. The one car they didn't put up there was Bella. They didn't even track where Bella was. They just said Monica knew that Bella would go to the eye doctor and it would take a few minutes to get home and she would get there a minute after. Well, that's plenty of time. It's a small window or whatever. Never realizing that Monica, conspirator Monica, murderer Monica, could have not only made sure Bella didn't discover the body, let both of them discover the body. Isn't that a little easier? That's a good alibi. At least you're with your daughter. And give your lover time to get the hell out of there. And all he did was drive around and find a place to park it, remember, and run back to get the Versa. My God. They're lucky they weren't caught right then and there if it was 1 minute. Why weren't they? She should have given them 30 minutes to do it. Nothing blocked that except for the fact that she was not in on it and she didn't know. Can we go to the frame that shows the calls that are made from if you'll excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to look at what is already in evidence from the prosecution. It's not going to be on a slide, but it's in evidence. And it will show you at the time that the call came in from Bella to her mother, 4:36, 47, somewhere around that time. And it shows a call also between Monica and Dr. Cohen. Okay? And then a call back to Bella. It shows what a three-way call looks like, because the calls are overlapping. And remember when I told you that there's no record of three-way calls between Austin and Birdsong and Baker? Because you don't see the same thing that you're going to see on the exhibit that has those calls. Because those calls show exactly when Bella called, and it shows when Monica was speaking to the doctor about whether she had to be there to pick up the glasses, and it shows Monica and Bella talking again. Right in the middle of the murder. There is no stronger evidence that you're going to see in this case that Monica controlled the time of everything. You're hearing Jessica had to be gone, and Bella had to be gone, and this and that. She had control. And you're being told that with all that control, her plan was for Bella to show up 1 minute after the murder occurred, and gave Austin and Baker 1 minute to get out of the house and escape, when she could have done just the opposite. Just the opposite. You ask yourself that. You ask yourself why that occurred, and then I think you'll find by itself that not only destroys the claim that Monica was part of the conspiracy, it shows that it was just pure luck that her daughter wasn't killed at the time the murder took place, and that she had nothing to do with the time at all, except to let Baker know, as he knew every day, that Monica Sementilli was at Target or Ralph's and that Fabio was home alone and the girls were not there. And they could have met up, they talked later. Baker had enough on his mind, obviously. And look at the calls again and see the number of calls back and forth and see if there's any change on the 17th or the 22nd or whenever. They are messaging and texting each other every day like they did for a year. Now, let's get to the post-murder. The murder has taken place. Question about to Deborah Oback, because remember the motive is supposed to be life insurance. Question: had Monica ever at any point discussed with you life insurance for Luigi? No. Did she say anything else about university? She said, Luigi is going to be fine. Luigi is going to be fine. His dad takes care of him. He's going to be fine. That has been twisted and turned into Monica being obsessed with the insurance because she lets Luigi know that she knows about this separate policy. The prosecution also says that the daughters have been brainwashed and their heads are in the sand. The only people who are brainwashed are the prosecution witnesses who are now presuming Monica's guilt. So whose head is in the sand? Whose head is in the sand? Let's talk about the life insurance then for a minute. He had no knowledge prior to the death of Fabio that his company would create a new policy that would provide 6 months' worth of salary to the family. The calls about life insurance to law enforcement, 7 calls to Weller, were perfectly and completely normal. I'll get to the next one. We've gone over this. Listen to those calls and remember, they are combined with the issue of finding the killer. She is told it's not that easy to fill out the life insurance claim in any case when it's a murder. You've got to send it to Weller, you've got to send it to, they say send it to MetLife. MetLife says it's got to go to the police. Again, they want you to presume that she is guilty and all these things then look guilty. Your job is to presume she is innocent. And everything she does is consistent with an innocent victim of a brutal murder of her husband. Calling the police and asking them, what progress have you made? What's going on? Have you found them? And all the police are saying is, oh, we're making progress. Don't worry. We've got someone. We've almost got someone. I think we got someone. Did you get a new DVR? But don't worry. The place is safe. No knock burglars don't come around anymore. They changed the locks. And they know that the DVR was purchased by Fabio, not by her. Okay. Where is the missing voicemail to Detective Castro where Monica is asking about insurance? So Detective Castro gets on the stand and told a particularly harsh, shall we say, view of Monica's phone call to him about the insurance. Do you remember that was the only reason he was put on the stand? They tape recorded everything, hours, hundreds of hours, every interview, every phone call. Where's that one? Now, guess we lost it. It's probably the same place where the tape recordings of what happened in the police car didn't work when they were arrested. Marco asked his attorney to draft a letter and offered it to Monica. Marco, remember, asked his attorney to draft a letter that Monica could use in trying to get the police and the insurance company to move on this. Again, this is pre-arrest, post-arrest. Pre-arrest, everyone's on the same side. Post-arrest, when it's the first time they're being interviewed, suddenly everything she does turns to guilt. Ms. Obad, Deborah, was the one who tried to do anything to help this situation and tried to get the insurance information on her own. And they're saying, oh no, Obad was doing what Monica wanted to do. Does Deborah Obad strike you as the kind of woman who takes orders or does what she thinks is right? She took over. Yeah, she did. She was what we would call a balabusta, which means someone who's in everyone's business. But she had a good heart. She was trying to help. So she did help. And everything that she did, you are now told she only did because Monica told her to. Everyone wanted to see her get the life insurance. They had a life in front of them. They didn't know about the 6 weeks yet of salary. That was a few weeks later, which, by the way, went into effect for everybody, right, from Wella. All they knew was they had a mortgage, they had to pay, they had car payments, they had the university, and they had a husband who no longer was working because he was dead. They had insurance, they had medical care, all the things that they didn't know about for at least 2 weeks later that Wella was going to take care of. Let's go on. Monica forwards, I'm just reading this because it's quite eye-opening. Monica forwards Parshall's life insurance email not only to Baker, but also her sister Anna and Marco. Look at this exhibit. Now this exhibit shows that a few days before the email that the prosecution told you, who did she send the first email clearing herself to? Who did she send it to? Did she send it to Anna? Did she send it to her family? Did she send it to her children? Like, why would you send it to your children? No. She sent it to Baker. The only one she cared about was Baker, not her family. Well, the fact that she sent it to Baker, who is still her lover, and she has no reason to believe committed the murder because they wouldn't tell her for 4 months. Should have told her the first time and sat her down and said, you're having an affair with the guy who murdered your husband. What do you say about that? Tell us about it. Don't follow them and trail them to get tawdry photos and pictures for 4 months. But what's worse is they tried to tell you that she was so in love with her husband more than her family, her kids, that the only one she sent it to, at least the first one she sent it to, that she is going to be cleared of the insurance, which was bullshit, because they were arresting her as soon as she got here, was her lover. Sounds bad, doesn't it? Look at the first email that was sent on June 7, 2017. That is from Parshall to Monica. Monica, hotmail.com. Subject. Hi, I have a late meeting tomorrow with our burglary task force guys who have a good lead. If I can verify this info, boy, they got good at this ruse, didn't they? If I can verify this info, we can fire on a letter to MetLife to clear the way for the insurance payout. I may need info next week. We'll let you know ASAP. They do still want to take a look at your phone bill that lists incoming phone calls for January. You can email or fax it to 81837. She did. Okay? That message was forwarded to Anna and Marco, and they even met, I'll read the transcript, to celebrate. And then, well, here's the text. This was the testimony of Marco on the stand. And did she text you again a screenshot of another message from Detective Parshall saying that they're clear on the letter from life insurance secretary? Secretary is typing it up, and MetLife should have it by the end of the week. Next week, or the following. Yes, she did. Okay, when you were in New York, did the defendant show you these messages or this particular text message from Parshall? We spoke about it, or these emails from Parshall. In person? Yeah, in person. And the testimony was they were all in New York with Anna celebrating the medical school graduation, I believe, of someone's daughter. Right? Medical graduation. So 2 days before they get the email, the final one from Parshall, which she does forward to Baker, she lets the family know that this is all coming. Why didn't they tell you that? It's right in the discovery that they provided to us. Why didn't they tell you that? Instead, you know how it was presented? Just have it replayed if you want to. They sent it to Baker and nobody else. And he was the first one she thought of, the last one before her children or anyone else. Yeah, after 2 days before, she let everyone know that it was coming. And of course it wasn't coming. And of course when they landed, a few days later, they arrested them all. After they interviewed Jessica and then told her, oh, by the way, your mom's been arrested. You better tell your family. Can we go on? Look at what her bank account was as the day of the murder. $63,000 and $43,000 in debt. Okay? Now, we know the calls to Detective Parshall, you've heard them. And then we got into the divorce versus death. Let's just move on. You've seen that chart, which supposedly says that she's going to get $1,500,000 if he's dead. The problem was they overvalued the stock options by a landslide. They didn't consider spousal support. They didn't know about Fabio's 6-month salary. Didn't put it in there. They had nothing about Fabio's income from Scissor Boy, the kickbacks he was getting, because Scissor Boy was working with Wella and the money was going into Monica's account. And what did they tell her after Fabio died? That's it. No more. He's dead. We're not gonna send you any more money. We can't. I mean, Fabio's dead. She lost all that income, which she knew was coming in every month. Still had the motive to kill him. There was not one credible or reliable calculation by the prosecution financial expert. This was Jane No. Remember her, the nice lady who came up there? And remember she was saying, I was asked by the prosecution, I guess Eversbacher wasn't enough because Eversbacher didn't use alimony and misapplied the stock options to the day of death rather than the day that they were exercised. So she tries to say also that the stock options were worth, who knows, right? 200, 300, 400,000, 453,000. She gave that figure on the day of death versus divorce. She could have gotten 453,000, which she says was conservative, a conservative figure. So I said, so this after we went through, remember, well, let's see, the stock options, they're worth what they are when you get them, and then if they go up, they're worth more, and if they go down, they're worth less. Isn't that right? And she says, yes. So this figure of 453, which she said was conservative, was way off. Yes. Okay. I said, that's okay. And she says, I realized that in retrospect. Okay. And the total amount that someone would have gained would have been somewhere around $72,000. So she testifies on direct 493 and finally agrees in retrospect it would have been $72,000. Let's go on. Hold on that for 1 second. Let me remind you again, whether it was the option or the income or the other options from Canada or whatever she had coming, in those stock options, not once between the date of the death until this trial started even, did she try to give one penny of those options. This was the motive, or at least one of them, right, for killing him? Death versus divorce? Worth far more dead than alive? They wouldn't have even been exercised if Procter & Gamble hadn't written that letter. And yet, the prosecutor makes a big deal about Mr. Rubin. You didn't even check, did you? What's that got to do with what they were worth? Yeah, he should have checked earlier, and maybe they would have been sold and put in the estate earlier. And he was hired by Luigi. We didn't put up that death versus divorce chart. They did. Not us. They did. And then it was shown to be totally false. He was worth far more alive than dead, and they left out the third option, stay married. You get all the income, and he has life insurance, and they renegotiate every 3 years. What do you have to kill him for? What is her motive? Zero. What is Baker's motive? I want her for myself. And I'm smart enough to know, especially after Christmas, when she's spending all this time with her family and not with him, that this is not going to last. But if he's dead, who does she have to turn to? She can't tell everyone she's been having an affair with him. She's fearful of that. My God, she brought this man into the family and into her life, and he ends up being a murderer. That's always possible, isn't it? That he gets caught. Or Fabio's dead, and let me tell you who I've been having an affair with, Robert Baker, child molester, polygamist, who knows what else. She's never going to end up with him if she has her way, and he knows that. Let's move on. We're almost done here. Big deal about Viber and WhatsApp. The records, no records show Monica deleted Viber on January 23rd, like they said. Their own data expert and Detective Roberts say they cannot determine when Monica deleted Viber. And then Baker and Monica started using WhatsApp, but Monica does not register for WhatsApp until 4 days later, not the night of the murder, as they tried to tell you. WhatsApp is a completely normal, popular messaging app. There's evidence Fabio was using it, WhatsApp, well before and as early as August 2015. And when Detective Roberts, who tried to say that she deleted it the very night or signed up the very night of the murder, she finally admits, I'm not quite certain if and when they actually did deactivate or remove Viber from their phones. And by the way, does it really matter that Baker keeps telling her, go on Viber, go on WhatsApp, do this, do that? He's the one who's covering up the affair as much as she is. And the last thing she wants is that affair to be known. The last thing she wants is that affair to come out. Let's move on. You know, we talked about burner phones. We put this up there because this is what the prosecution's expert says. It's something that you can use to hide your interactions with a spouse or a loved one. Probably more to deceive your spouse than commit a crime. But they're out there and they're used on a regular basis. The prosecution's expert said that. So when Baker says, here's a burner phone, use this burner phone to Monica or to Austin or to anyone else, Yeah, that's what it is used for, to cover up affairs. Doesn't make it right. And she's nervous about it after the murder because someone's going to find out that she's having an affair with Robert Baker. And she's just as worried about it before the murder, that she's having an affair with Robert Baker. Everything, as I told you, that she did to hide this affair is consistent with someone who doesn't want it to be known. Two reasonable interpretations, one of which points to innocence, one of which points to guilt. You are required to adopt the one that points to innocence. Can we move on? Okay. Again, we're just trying to show that these arguments about Monica's interviews, and she totally was uncooperative, and was only trying to find out and figure out who murdered her husband, is what really happened here. Because they misrepresented everything else. She gave her password to her home security system right away. She told the police to go and recover the neighborhood surveillance footage. And she was honest about her route during the day of the murder. Right? She could have said, you know what, on my day home from the murder, if she wanted to cover up why it took 11 minutes when I told you she should have made it look 30 minutes so they could get away and Bella wouldn't walk in on him. She could have said, yeah, I stopped somewhere else. They didn't have video of her even leaving her house. From the very beginning, she told them, I went to Target, I went to Rouse, I came home at this time. It was 5 minutes after Fabio was killed. She controlled the time. She was honest. And they're using that as evidence of guilt. Let's move on. This we've talked about. They tried to say, well, Austin doesn't know much about the justice system, so he wanted an attorney, and another baloney. He knew well about it, well enough to say, yeah, I'll tell you what you want. Get me an attorney first and a deal. Let's move on. I want you to understand that the court, when the prosecution finishes their rebuttal, is going to provide you with the applicable law. And it's going to talk about conspiracy to commit murder and intent, all the things that Ms. Silverman went through for days. This is the law. That's fine, but you have to find the facts first before you apply the law. The law I want you to apply, the law that both sides should want you to apply, is proof beyond a reasonable doubt, circumstantial evidence, two reasonable interpretations, and you must corroborate the testimony of Austin. And that is, you can't just rely on, he said Monica, Baker said Monica did it. Baker said Monica knew. Baker said Monica was in on it. Baker said Monica wanted her dead. We had three-way calls, of which there is no evidence of any three-way calls, and all the rest I read to you. So remember that instruction. The judge gives you an instruction. It doesn't mean you find guilty or not guilty. It means you apply the instructions to the facts. And first you determine the facts. And if you determine that she did not knowingly intend to kill him, it's over. It's over. Let's go on. I learned a long time ago when I was in law school that Thomas Jefferson once said the cross-examination is the linchpin of democracy. And then got to get Alexander Hamilton in there since he had that hit play. The first duty of society is justice. So what does that mean to you? That means that what this trial is about is not just what they present, but what we present. And a witness may get up there and sound like the family's witnesses did for good reason, that she was the second coming of Attila the Hun, or Madame New, if you have your Vietnam history war, you remember. As evil a woman as they could be. And then you find out that none of them were interviewed till after the police told them she killed Fabio. They told you she was covering up and deleting and doing all those things to cover up the murder, and we showed you they were doing it to cover up the affair. They told you that Austin was in on it and told you that Monica knew about it, and we told you in 20 different ways what a liar he was and why he lied. And whatever you can say about Baker, at least he didn't get a deal. We showed you what a controlling, manipulative, evil person he was. Boy, did she make a stupid mistake. Mistake that brought a man into the lives of her family that she will have to live for the rest of her life and has already lived for 8 years. And she is guilty of a lot of things. Stupidity, duplicity, lying, adultery, all the things you saw up there. All the things. But she is not guilty of murder. Now, someone gave me this a long time ago, and I was a young attorney, right after I was in the DA's office, before a lot of you were born, probably. And I think what it shows, because there's no way to know what reasonable doubt means beyond a reasonable doubt, except that you are reasonable people, and if you have a doubt about her guilt, your vote is not guilty. Your job isn't here to find her innocent. I hope you do. I wish there was a verdict innocent. We don't think she had anything to do with it. That's tough in a case like this. I realize it. I realize that. She's here for a reason, yeah. She was having an affair with someone who murdered her husband, and she hid it, and she was arrested, and they threw her in a cell, and she said things to her lover, and did things for her lover. It didn't sound great. But she did not commit, or orchestrate, or conspire to commit the murder of her husband. Now, I'm hoping that you find her proven not guilty. You can't write that down. I hope you believe that. If you feel she probably did not do it, your vote is still not guilty. She may not be guilty, your vote is still not guilty. Suspected, probably, possibly, likely, even highly likely. Now those are the words of the person who prepared the chart, which I'm adopting. It doesn't say that in the jury instruction. It says an abiding conviction of the truth of the charge. Which means you're going to believe in your conviction that your verdict is correct. You're going to believe in that the rest of your life. If someone came up to you a month or a year or 2 years from now and said, you know, Austin finally came out and admitted that she had nothing to do with it, would you be surprised? Because if you wouldn't be surprised, then you're not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. You've got to be way up there. And I just read you what that says. And it dovetails with that, and it dovetails with presumed innocent and 2 reasonable interpretations of the evidence. You are required to adopt the one that points to innocence and reject the one that points to guilt. Now, she has been sitting there for 9 weeks, but she's been sitting in a prison for 8 years. The only one who throughout this case, who was charged, that has consistently said, I am not guilty. No deals, no nothing. They all made deals, they all pled. No deals, no nothing. 8 years. She has suffered for her choices, and they were horrible. But she's not guilty of first-degree murder, of destroying a family, of putting her daughter in danger of being murdered when she could have controlled the whole thing. So I hope, yes, that you find her in your mind innocent, because I think she's been proven innocent. But you don't have to even get close to that. All you have to find is the prosecution has not proven her guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And then come out there and you say the words that she has been waiting to hear for 8 years. Not Monica, you're a great person. Not Monica, you did the right thing. Not Monica, you were a great wife. Not Monica, you were a great mother. Not Monica, you were even a great person. But Monica, you're not a murderer. And they have not proven you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. She's waiting to hear to say the words she's been waiting. She wants you to say the words she's been waiting to hear for 8 years. Monica Sementilli, you are not guilty of these charges. And we hope and expect you to return that verdict, however long or however short it takes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will be in recess for lunch until 1:30. The admonition applies. Have a good lunch.